Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 115 of the Let's Talk Yoga podcast. I hope you are doing well. Before we get into today's conversation about chakras, and it is a really, really important conversation. If there's one conversation you hear or on the chakras, it should be this one. Indu Arora is back. She is no stranger to this podcast. I joke in the episode itself that she's like this a walking, talking yoga encyclopedia, and how all this wisdom and knowledge just flows out of her effortlessly. And I'm sure if you are a regular listener, you have heard the many times Indu has been on this podcast. I'm so happy that she's back and she's so generous and shares with us habitually on the podcast. Okay. So, but before we get there, I have redone the newsletter. I spoke about it last week. I'm going to bring it up again. We've completely revamped the newsletter and we have now made it more bite-sized content. I am moving further away from posting on Instagram just because there's a lot of noise and I want to practice pratyahara for myself in many ways. I will still be on that medium, but the real learning is going to happen on the newsletter. I have ended the Mindful Yoga Teachers Club and now focusing on the newsletter after 2 years. So I really hope that you will sign up for it. It's free. It shows up in your inbox once in 2 weeks. And each week is linked to the previous one. So by the end of a few months, it's like you just did a free mini training in your inbox at your leisure and something to reflect on. There are different elements to the newsletter which you will explore once you sign up, and we'll keep building on the asana segments, the reflection segments, the philosophy, how to bring that into life and teaching. You ask questions on the newsletter that I'll answer in the next edition. There are resources that come in through podcasts, blogs, videos. So I'm really excited about it, and I hope this little intro is getting you excited to sign up for it. You would have already missed the first edition by the time you hear this episode drop, but the next one is around the corner. So make sure you go to the link in the podcast description or my Instagram handle or anywhere you connect with me. Just ask for the link if you can't find it. I'm happy to share it. And I hope I see you in our inbox and we can talk so much more about all things yoga. Now, let's get back to today's conversation. In today's episode, we get deep into chakras. Okay. And we not only talk about what popular yoga has gotten wrong or appropriated chakras, but we get into the real meaning of a chakra. And Indu gives us perspective that I'm pretty sure a lot of you would have not heard of before. And it's really something that resonates deeply. Okay, we talk about should someone work on their chakras? And I know for those of you listening and not watching the video on YouTube, I'm doing air quotes, is how does someone work on these chakras? Should we be working? What is the barrier of entry, right? Can anyone and everyone work on their chakras? How do you really learn about the chakras? And then the balance is balancing your chakras a thing, and so much more, right? My intro will do no justice to what you will learn about the chakras from this conversation with Indu. As always, everything mentioned in the interview itself will be in our show notes at letstalk.yoga/listen. Indu did mention that she has a course coming up on April 21st about the chakras, which I would highly encourage you to explore, because she talks about giving context to content like this, and I'm all for it. You've heard me talk about context matters for the past few years on the podcast. So I really hope you'll explore that. All of it is available at letstalk.yoga/listen. Please rate and review this podcast on Apple as well as Spotify now. Spotify does ratings. It really will help us get this free content into the hands of more listeners. And I'll see you on the other side. Hi, Indu. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Yoga podcast.
Thank you so much for having me back, Arundhati.
You know, I have been actually thinking about doing an episode on the chakras, and it was just a thought in my head. And you recently posted something on Instagram about chakras, and I was like, we should totally have you elaborate, and because there were so many important things you raised there. So I'm glad you are here yet again to share on the podcast. So where do we start? Because chakras is such a vast topic. right? And it's such an important topic in yoga. So, and I feel like so much of chakras are, or information, knowledge about chakras, it's oversimplified. And it's, I've always thought half knowledge is more dangerous than no knowledge, and ignorance is bliss. So where do we start? Can we start at what have we fundamentally gotten wrong about chakras in popular yoga?
So there are a couple of things that you mentioned, that you said, Arundhati. One is, when it comes to yoga, when it comes to this path, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is ignorance. Ignorance is avidya. And that path of avidya does not lead to the state of yoga. The state of yoga is achieved or established in the light of vidya, in the light of knowledge that is then churned and transformed into wisdom with sadhana, with practice. So practice is so important. And when we talk about practice, there are several aspects of the practice. One is the practice of techniques, and the other is the mental chewing on the philosophical concepts. And the third is learning from a teacher. And when I say teacher here, that person is someone who does not just has the knowledge of the limited subject, but someone who has the experience of the subject in context, not just the content, but the content in context. Because, we can have, for example, as we go to the school, there is a teacher of mathematics, and there is a teacher of science, and there is a teacher of geography. But in yoga, when we learn from a teacher, the teacher has the knowledge, whether it is of asana or pranaya or mantra or mudra or chakra, subtle body. So coming back to your initial thought, where should we begin? I will say that since we are on Let's Talk Yoga podcast, and we have done an episode on Sukshma Sharira, subtle body, I think that would be a great beginning point to listen. If as a practitioner, you're looking for more information on subtle body. But coming back to the question of chakras, is we have to be interested in something more than physical. So the Sukshma Sharira, start from Sukshma Sharira, start from subtle body. Don't start from chakras directly, because then it is the context and content together. And therefore, the popular yoga is all about parts, not whole.
Yes.
And because it is just parts can be easily taken out of context, and then it can be misconstrued. It can be, we can really build a narrative around it, whatever suits us. And that's where the misappropriation or appropriation happens. But the foundation is ignorance. Ignorance is not bliss here.
There's so much. You always pack so much into a response. I really enjoyed how you said, content in context. And context is missing so much. And I've always believed that the seekers are more sincere than not. And it's hard to navigate because nobody's giving them context. So I'm so glad you brought up context, because I think context is not spoken about enough in popular yoga, right? And I even like how you said, start in the Sukshma Sharira first. Develop your broader understanding. And I'm saying broader, you didn't say it, but develop a broader, fuller understanding, get an overview, and then slowly step in. And it's the parts don't make the whole, and it's like, I was just thinking of, you wouldn't take parts of a car and say you have a car. But we take parts of yoga and we say it is yoga. So such deep reflective points. So what does the word chakra mean? Okay. Firstly, it's pronounced in funny ways. But what does the word chakra mean? And if I may give you a second question right there, what is its significance in yoga? And if you want to expand that beyond yoga, that's fine too.
So let's start with, traditional imparting of knowledge, it begins with pronunciation. It does not begin with meaning. It does not begin with synonyms and definition and even application. No. It begins with pronunciation. Let the mind at the subtle level calibrate to the vibrational frequency of the subject. So the learning also starts from inside out, although the approach is very, we can say, tangible, because it is about just pronunciation, not the pressure of pronunciation and definition and application and technique. So when we say the word, it is pronounced as chakra. See, at the end, the r sound is kind of retroflex. Chakra. It's not chakra. It's not chakra. It's not chakra. It is chakra.
Yeah.
Yes. So now we can understand this word, any word in Sanskrita, in three different light. One is the word itself can be opened up into synonyms. That, this means that. For example, chakra means a wheel or something circular or disc-like or disc or round or a wheel. These are all different words to explain the word chakra. But the meaning of the word comes from the definition and also from the verb root. So here the verb root is kriya, kra, which means that which propels kriya, that which propels or kickstarts a process, that which helps one move forward or deeper. So that which animates. And the definition is chalana karoti iti chakra. Chalana karoti iti chakra. Chalana means to move or to animate. Karoti means to cause or to propel. Iti, that is chakra. That which propels movement, that which animates, that which makes one move forward is a chakra. What is the purpose of chakra or the knowledge of chakra? That is why the context is important. Now, if you were approaching the knowledge of self, because the whole point in Ayurveda, Tantra, Yoga, these Upanishadic and Tantric texts is all about reaching self, realizing self, whether through Yoga Sutra, we call it the state of Kaivalya or Samadhi, or in Tantric text, we call it as the state of Samavesha or Ekavira. Irrespective, the point is the self with the capital S, the realization that we are consciousness and that there is no otherness. If we take the path of Ayurveda and therefore Sankhya philosophy, there is no chakra mentioned in Sankhya Karika. But if we follow the path through Yoga Sutras, there is description of chakras. 5 chakras are mentioned. And what is the context of the chakra? The context is focal point, points of concentration, points of dharana. Tool. It is a tool for focusing. And in this tool of focusing, depending upon different text, again, either we bring in information, choose the path as laid out by tantric texts like Vijnana Bhairav Tantra or Shiva Sutras, or we go through the Sri Tattva Chintamani. These are all name of some tantrika texts. In each of these texts, the context is different. So therefore, the goal changes. So we cannot generalize that the goal of chakra is such. It depends upon which path you are taking, and therefore the goal changes. In Yoga Sutras, the goal is they are points of focus, they are dharana. And on dharana, on different points, on different regions. See, again, I'm using 2 words here, points and regions. So the chakra is a field of energy. And the field of energy has a circumference. If we talk about that circumference, that region, that kshetra, then we will call it as chakra. Versus if we call them as point, then they become bindu.
Okay.
So, or if we understand them as foundations, foundational state of mind or emotion, they become adhara. Or if we approach chakra through the pathway of connecting to them, connecting to their vibrational frequency through sound, through nada, through mantras, through the internal recitation of bija mantras, then we call them padmas, lotuses, and the lotuses have petals. Each petal here is a sound. What are we approaching them as? The focus changes. Are we working on the mind? Are we working, preparing the mind for connecting with consciousness? Are we working on the mind to just bring it to the state of pratyahara? Are we working on the mind so that from pratyahara it propels or it moves forward into dharana? Or are we moving forward? For example, netra tantra, it's not just about dharana. It's not just a focal point. It's not just a pratyahar tool. It is a tool, a practice that leads to deeper and deeper levels of silence. So here chakras are not mentioned as chakras, they are mentioned as vyomas. And vyoma means a state of void. And void here means a state of silence. So each chakra is progressively deeper state of silence. So you see, it depends upon, we want to work upon it as pratyahara, as dharana, as dhyana, or samadhi. So, but one thing is clear, that it is the focus of working on chakras is not, one may have certain experiences on the way, but the focus is not physical experiences or sensory experiences. The focus is not so much, how do I work on something that is going on in my body through chakras? That, I'm having indigestion or digestion related issues, so I should work on this particular chakra. Not that there is no correlation, but the goal is deeper. The goal is antar yoga, internal yoga. The goal is sam yoga, the triangle between dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. The goal is always internal, at least from traditional perspective.
So much there. Right there, I wish I can pause and rewind and re-listen to all that you just said, which I'll do once the recording is done. But you are contextualizing it, and I'm pretty sure, me included, we don't hear this said this way often enough. Where you gave us a list, quite literally, of if this is the context, then it is like this. If this is it, then it is like this. If it's the Yoga Sutras, then it is dharana. It is a tool for going deeper within into your antarangas, right? And we don't talk enough about the antarangas and progressively going into deeper stages of silence, right? And I want to pause there because you said progressively going into deeper stages of silence. I understand that in the Ashtanga Yoga mark. Okay. Can we talk about the order of the chakras? Because there is so much about, lower chakra to higher chakra, then the kundalini gets pushed into it. And I'm talking about oversimplified conversations. And the vertical ascent of kundalini Shakti. So they are taught, or they are not taught, but they are available in a very linear manner in modern popular yoga books and internet and things like that. So how important is the order? Okay. If somebody is understanding about chakra, not learning, not doing, just getting to know about the chakras, is this linear, very Western way of learning also? Does the order matter? That's the long-winded way of asking you about the order of the chakras. Yeah.
It's a great question. Does the order matter? Again, it matters which text you are picking from and what is the goal. Okay. Let's take the example. If we pick about the concept of chakras from Vijnana Bhairav Tantra, which is a tantric text, Kashmir Shaivism. In that case, there are two methods of concentrating, several methods, but in my mind right now, there are two methods that it talks about of for concentrating on chakras. And there is only one purpose, Bhairava, so that knowledge, that experience fills the mind with light, with Bhairava, with Bha, with light, which dispels fear, which dispels ignorance, which means the state of realization.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the goal. The goal is that Bhairava, Vijnana Bhairava. There it talks about focusing on Kundalini, the Kundalini Shakti moving through the chakras in two ways, Krama and Akrama. Krama means sequential. And here, because we are talking about the Vijnan Bhairav Tantra, it talks about these 7 chakras from Mooladhara to Sahasrara, and also talks about 2 chakras that are, one is the macrocosmic chakra, which is called external Dvadashanta, and internal chakra, which is called internal Dvadashanta. Now, these may be new terms. Those who are listening get overwhelmed with it. Welcome the knowledge and develop the mental capacity to chew upon it. You know, my teacher used to say that a sincere student should have 2 stomachs like the cow. So first you graze upon it, graze upon the knowledge, and then go back, sit in the sun, or, sit on your contemplative state and chew upon it. Bring it back and chew upon it. Don't let it overwhelm you. There's all the time in the world to get these concepts. So Krama and Akrama, this is the important thing here. That rising of the Kundalini Shakti, sometimes it happens in sequence and sometimes it happens without following a particular sequence. So it depends, what are we doing? Again, are we using them as points of focus? If we are utilizing them as points of focus, you can simply see which part in your body, which region in the midline naturally draws your attention magnetically. So instead of thinking about, this is the quality of Mooladhara, this is the quality of Swadhisthana, and sometimes that can be motivating for some people and that can help you build bhavana. But in my limited awareness, develop that visceral sense. Where is my mind naturally getting drawn towards? Which point? And then stay there, because that dharana will become dhyana, and then dhyana will lead to samadhi. So the whole point of utilizing the knowledge of chakra is to move, if I may say, sequentially from pratyahar to dharana to dhyana to samadhi. And sometimes this process can happen or seemingly happen as if it is not happening sequentially, as if someone just sat for meditation or concentration and then immediately there is realization. There is nothing which is happening which is without any particular path. It may seem from outside that, this person just started doing asanas and introduced to asanas, and I feel that the person can possibly do all kind of asanas or learned about pranayama and has gripped it or understood it so quickly. There is no quickly. There is past work that we cannot see.
Correct.
But there is a past karmas that bring us to the point where some things, some aspects of knowledge we digest very quickly. And it may seem like that, that this is happening without any particular sequence, without any particular path, but there is a path. Coming back to the Kundalini that you mentioned, vertical ascension. Again, Kundalini, one of the words, maybe you already know that, but one of the meanings of the word Kundalini is Arundhati.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yes, that is another name of Kundalini, where Kundalini is when the quality of Kundalini which becomes a supporter to your mind, that internal innate knowing becomes a supporter of your mind. It's called Arundhati. There are different names of chakras and different names of Kundalini. But anyways, this Kundalini Shakti does not just ascend. In fact, according to one of the tantric texts, it ascends and descends too. And not just ascends and descends. It also goes back into complete repose. That is beyond movement, beyond sound, beyond... So beyond the form, as in Kundal means circular or coil. The coiled one or the crooked one. So it goes even beyond form. It goes even beyond sound. It goes even beyond movement. So this movement is a very initial pathway, but it is not just rising up. It is not just that Mooladhara is the lower chakra and Swadhisthana is the next chakra. We can we can approach it from the perspective of that one leads to a deeper state of silence or mind than the other. And instead of seeing them as vertical, how about we see them as horizontal and see them one nestled inside the other, where Mooladhara is inside Swadhisthana, and Mooladhara and Swadhisthana is inside Manipura, and all are inside Anahata, and so on and so forth. And the deepest point is Sahasrara, because it is the point of silence. That is why there is no mantra associated with Sahasrara. The only thing is the sound of silence. But what is Sahasrara within? Sahasrara is within the heart of the heart, and that is not Anahat Chakra or the heart chakra. And that point is in the center of the Kundalini when it is in complete repose. And Kundalini is in the macrocosmic space, merged with the external. So it is nestled one inside the another. And no matter, coming back again to your point, no matter where you start from, it will take you within as long as your focus is yoga, as long as your focus is samavesha, as long as your focus is from a traditional text and true to the philosophy of yoga, Ayurveda, and Tantra. It will take you inside. And there is one more thing that I want to add, Arundhati. We forget that from all these three perspectives, the association is not so much with the body. What is the association with prana? In all the three, there is one common point, that is, which means we are beings of energy, and not so much beings of energy, but points of energy. Because we think of ourselves as this three-dimensional beings, we think of lower and higher. But what if we think of ourselves as points of energy? If we think of ourselves as points of energy, we will think in a circular, energetic way instead of vertical or horizontal perspective. We will think of it as going deeper and deeper, that which leads to, in certain tantric contexts and concepts, bindu bhedana, the ultimate piercing of that bindu also, for the mind to merge into mahad, and mahad into prakriti, and prakriti becomes still, and then it becomes purusha. They become one. But the point is, we forget the point. That is the point. We forget the point. We get so much stuck with the physicality of the body, the three-dimensionality of the body, that we forget what is the point.
I mean, I'm always like speechless after some of your answers, because they're still playing in my head. I really like how you said they're nestled one within the other. What if we looked at them horizontally? That's a new perspective for me. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of how vertically you feel, where naturally our mind is conditioned to think what next, right? Like either up or down, right? What next? Or what did I leave behind? And whereas in this horizontal thing, it feels infinite. It's limitless, and you can expand into it. And that's just so much more supportive, for lack of a better word, for our learning and understanding. So who, now this is a question I have been wanting to ask you for the past 20 minutes. Okay. Who should work on their chakras? Like, because I feel like, is there a barrier of entry, right? Should we be working on our chakras? Should we just know about them, and some of us should not work on them? Because I feel like if you just take half a practice and try to do something, that's even worse for you than a full practice, right? So are there any barriers of entry? If someone listening to this podcast, they want to work on their prana, right? And they want to work on their sukshma sharira. How does one approach this? Should one just know it, leave it, or are there hierarchies that we have to look at? Can you even work on them in a modern day yoga class scenario?
When I think of modern day class scenario, I think of chakra asanas for chakras, or that perspective of chakra yoga. But again, as I mentioned, it's a totally internal concept. You can utilize in asanas chakras as focal points, as dharanas, so that you are constantly connected to the sukshma sharira, to the subtle body. Now, coming back to are there any barriers, or who can begin focusing on working on chakras, and what does working on chakras mean? There is no, in my limited awareness, there is no working on chakras. When we think of working, we think that something is wrong, so it needs to be worked upon. That chakras have become weak, or they become, I don't know,
depleted,
not harmonized, or out of balance, or cleanse because they have become dirty. So this is a very modern language.
Can they be depleted, Indu?
Our energy, our prana can be depleted.
Yes, but chakra?
Yes. Chakra energy can be affected by the mind, because when the mind gets distracted, when the mind gets rajasic, tamasic, that is when it can affect our connection to the subtle body. So what can become weaker is our connection to the subtle body. And our source of energy, it may seem like that we get energy from the food, which I'm not denying we do get. We do get energy from the food, we get energy from the environment. But the ultimate source of energy is inside, from within, which means that the energy comes from these animating points, that is the chakras. When our mind's connection becomes weaker to the subtle body, we can feel depleted. But that does not mean chakras are depleted. Our connection is severed. Our connection is affected. Our connection is we are not connected to ourselves. And it can start by we lose connection to our physical body. How many of us really have proprioception, a real connection to when am I hungry, or when am I thirsty, or am I really feeling hot? Am I really feeling cold? I should really listen to my body and go to sleep, because otherwise I will be depleted. I need this repletion. This basic everyday awareness comes with proprioception, connection to not just the physical body, but internal organs. So when that connection becomes weak, we can think that, oh, my digestive system is weak. No, my connection to my body is weak, so I cannot read the signals of the body. But in this case, it is not the chakra that becomes weak, it is our connection that becomes weak. And therefore, we are not able to source our energy from within. And what do we do? What is generally suggested? Concentrate on Mooladhara chakra, or concentrate on Manipura chakra. Now, that's not wrong, because what are we doing? We are building a connection again. But where the misunderstanding comes from is as if we are working on the chakra because the chakra is imbalanced. No. We're not working on the chakra. We are working on the process to connect with the chakra. And whether it is mantra, bij mantra, or whether it is visualization of a specific tattva, element, for example, generally the Mooladhara chakra is associated with Prithvi tattva, earth element.
Earth element,
if we focus upon the tattva, we visualize a yellow square, which is associated with the Prithvi tattva. And another thing that is associated with Prithvi tattva is the seed sound lam or lung. Depend upon if you're talking about the esoteric mantra, which is lung, Lu sounds like lung, or the exoteric mantra, which is lam, which ends in ma sound. So irrespective. But one thing again becomes confusing. We always associate root chakra, or the root center of consciousness, or Mooladhara or Adhar chakra with earth element. No, that is not correct. It is in one of the texts, Sri Tattva Chintamani, in one chapter which is called Shat Chakra Nirupana, there the association of Prithvi Tattva, Prithvi Mandala is Mooladhara chakra. But that is not the case in every text. Sometimes the Prithvi Tattva can be visualized in the heart.
Oh, really?
If there is too much Chitta Vrittis and Manovrittis, in that case, to stabilize that, to bring that Prithvi Tattva, to bring that groundedness, we visualize. It is not that groundedness is only associated with Mooladhara.
Earth element.
Are you getting? So these are important contexts to be had when we think about chakras. But in texts, in both tantric texts and yogic texts, there is description on who is the adhikaran. Adhikaran means the ready, the person to whom the knowledge is to be imparted or should be imparted, and
So
therefore,
important.
therefore they have the readiness to digest and the ability to contain and not just feel stirred, not just feel overwhelmed, not just feel it's too much, but the ability to contain. And that is very important. For example, what are some, I will not go into all the details because then it will become a podcast on adhikaran, but what are some of the qualities? Someone who has a strong, who is daksha, someone who has manasik agni, mental fire. What does it mean in every term? Discernment. Discernment between even something basic. Should I read from this book or this book? Should I watch this video or that video? Should I listen to this teacher or that teacher? This is a very important discernment as a student, because this itself can waver us off the path. This is called daksha. The second quality is someone who has some level of pratyahara, the ability to go into pratyahara, the ability to withdraw the awareness from the five sensory organs. See, this is called, this is basic, because again, what we talked about, that chakra knowledge is utilized either for strengthening pratyahara or going into concentration or going into meditation. So that pratyahara is in some level the foundation, both in this, this prerequisites as an adhikaran comes from Gandharva Tantra. It is a tantric text, but also in Vedic scriptures, the same dhamma. The term here is used dhamma, which means sensory control. So there are some basic prerequisites that is for someone to work upon themselves, have that clarity of mind, have that ability to discern, have trust on the path, the ability to detach from limited experiences. Because whenever we even practice something basic like asanas or pranayam, because they work through the body, we might have some experiences of heaviness, lightness, fleetiness, tingling, pulsing, throbbing. And my answer to that is, who cares? How does it matter? Is that are your goals in yoga so much related to sensory enjoyments? Is it still so much superficial, because senses are still a part of the physical body? If we are thinking experiences of sight, touch, sound as advanced experiences, we must change our language and understand that they are still at the periphery of what is yoga.
Yes. So
and
true.
that discernment is so important, that what are you looking for, and constant detachment from those is really important. My teacher used to say that when you develop the ability to be still at your will, then you can move deeper, let's say, to the realm of Swadhisthana. So that is one of the qualities or signs of Mooladhara Chakra, that you are connected to the internal source. Your energy, your stillness, or your movement are inspired from within, from the Mool Adhara, from the basic root foundation. And when that happens, you can still at will. And when you can, again, be another thing that my teacher used to say is that when you can feast in fasting, when you can feast during fasting, when you can have that source of enjoyment within instead of outside, then you are established in Swadhisthana. And when you can have the thrill or still at your will, either or, which means you can either energize yourself or completely calm down yourself, calibrate your energy, then you are established. You are established. Not that Manipur Chakra is established. You are established in Manipur Chakra. So on. I'm not going to go into all of these, but...
No, it's beautiful to hear this, because I think of it as you feel full in the lack of,
Yes.
And your teacher has said it so beautifully, still at will. You should slogans of these Indu still at will. It's like a reminder for everybody. And so if I understand correctly, you're saying the technique of how you work on the chakras, and I'm using that a little liberally here, is not as significant. It is more the what you are doing in that working moment or experience. And it's not something you are trying to fix. So it's not like one technique is superior to another. It depends on the person, the context, the goal, and how they're going about it. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, quite to some extent, although there is a progression in techniques. That's why, I kind of...
Yes, no, I understand that. I'm just thinking if the listener was asking you this question, or if they were sorting through this, because what I hear from students sometimes is I remember one of my teacher trainees once came to me and said, "Oh, I did this chakra meditation, Aru. I felt so fabulous afterwards." And I didn't really have a response other than, "Oh, good for you," because I wanted to say so much, but I also knew so much of it was too soon to say that much. So I didn't say anything. And I there is this tendency, and very sincerely, it comes from a sincere place of, I'm going to try this technique and this technique and this technique, and something is going to make me connect to whatever people are trying to connect to. And I'm like, no, the technique is not outside. It is what's happening on the inside. And what happens for me is different with what is going to happen for you in some degree or a greater degree. So that's why I was trying to simplify it to a list, if I may call it that, or not even a list, but
yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I will again begin with one of the phrases from my teachers, and that is, when all external processes become internal. No, I'll repeat it. When all external practices become internal processes, that is yoga.
Beautiful.
Where you don't have to lift a finger, forget about lifting an arm to do asana. You visualize you become that. When you don't have to close a nostril to breathe from the opposite, but you just
can feel it.
Visualize. When you don't have to use a tool, for example, a japmala externally, to maintain a focus of a certain mantra. And the focus for the certain mantra is to maintain a certain state of mind. That is yoga. But of course, we all are not ready to begin from the internal field. So there is an external process also. There are two kinds of practices when we talk about chakras. One is esoteric practices and the other is exoteric practices. The exoteric practices is when we connect to something subtle, but from using something which is external, using something which is corporeal, using something which is tangible. For example, there is practices of chakra puja, especially in Sri Vidya Tantra, where the chakra is drawn outside and using at times flowers, grains, or it is an external, it is not drawn on a field, it is not bhuprashta, but it is a crystal that it is made up of crystal, or it is made up of brass. Then it becomes the Meru Prashta mantra, yantra. But irrespective, you offer flowers to it, you offer mantra to it, you offer lamp or light a lamp in front of it. These are external practices so that we can connect to something internal. So we can do something completely outside of our body, thinking that the source of power is this image, or is this geometrical pattern, or is this three-dimensional pattern. And that is one of the ways so many people connect to, because there we are utilizing mudras, we are utilizing mantra, we are utilizing so many of these external rituals and external ways to connect to something which is completely esoteric. Or some people get drawn towards drawing yantras, yantra drawings, and that is also a way to focus the mind. But you're again working on the chakras. But as we progress, these external rituals become internal offerings. And chakras, instead of becoming points of focus alone, becomes tirth, points of pilgrimage. There's a difference. See, instead of just me worshipping something outside, or even utilizing and focusing just for the sake of concentration, which can be also very dry, then it, instead of just a focal point, a bindu, it becomes a tirtha. What is the difference between just a point or just a place and a point of pilgrimage? There is bhavana. There is a different kind of surrender, bhakti. There is a different kind of emotion of devotion associated. And what that does is, the purpose of any tirtha or any pitha, any pilgrimage point, is it transforms the mind and opens it into new insights. There is an inner transformation. There is an inner shift. There is a realization. There is because of an insight. And what is unique about a tirtha, thinking of chakras as tirthas, is tirtha means a point of no return. That once you have a certain realization, how can you unsee what you have seen? How can you unrealize what you have realized? So completely different approaches. And where do we begin from? You begin from what you feel most connected to. But also know that whatever you know, you have to detach from it and move further.
Yes.
Don't let whatever you are utilizing as a tool to become an attachment that, oh, now I don't have a crystal yantra. I have crystal yantra, but now I don't have the hibiscus flower, and now I don't have this particular incense, and now I don't have a particular place in my home which has a separate place for altar. We get so hooked up with all these things that we forget that is not the point. We forget
what is the point. Yes.
What is the point? We have to keep reminding ourselves, what is the point of all of this? And in yoga, the point is yoga. That's it. In yoga, the point is yoga. It's so simple. You don't have to learn another word. You have to just keep coming back to yoga. Just refine the meaning of the word yoga.
Beautiful.
But Arundhati, I want to also add,
Please add.
There is a training that's coming up on chakras that begins in April 21st. And there we will pick up the subject matter of chakras from 4 different texts, from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, from Netra Tantra, Vijnan Bhairav Tantra, and Shad Chakra Nirupana, which is from Sri Tattva Chintamani. We are going to every day explore chakra from a different text and understand in that light what are the practices. And then a person can feel equipped with, where should I begin? What should I look for? What are the pitfalls? What are the confirmations that my mind is on the right path? So there is the opportunity coming up for those who are eager, ready, and interested.
You just gave me, I was going to ask you, so if somebody wants to deepen their study and knowledge of chakra, what would you recommend? And you just answered that for me. April 21st. I didn't even know this was coming up. So I will link to it. We will make sure it is available. And I'm pretty sure it will be very appealing to a lot of people who want to learn more, but just don't know where to start, right? Or have started, but have ended up in places where there's no context. And so no, this is really wonderful that you're offering it. I know when we go off the main recording, I keep telling you, teach more, make it more available. So I'm so happy to hear you saying this.
No, I listened to you. I did listen to you, Arundhati, and you always said that, oh, there are all these big programs. Are there any tiny programs? And there are those too. I'm not going into those details right now. If anyone is interested, they can check on my website. But I want to say the listeners, I did listen to Arundhati.
Well, I listen to you a lot too. So I learn from you more than listen. I learn from you. So is there anything else you want to leave the listeners with, or should we wrap this up? As always, we link to everything of where people can connect with you virtually, all your trainings. We'll do all of that because you're no stranger to this podcast. The listeners know you too. But any final thoughts as we wrap up this chakra conversation? I mean, I have more questions, but I'm going to leave them because they're a little simple, and I'm pretty sure you'll cover it in your training as well.
It's the only thing I would like to say is that we have made something which is perceptible through the eye of the mind, as if something which has become perceptible to the physical eye. And we like to illusion that I see it because I see a yellow square, because I see a red triangle, or because now I'm keeping with the knowledge, having the knowledge of yoga and tantra. Now I learned about chakras, so now I'm going to wear certain stones or put certain stones or certain regions in the body. I'm not denying that you might not feel connection, because again, these are just external tools that are reminders of internal processes. But it is dangerous to be in that illusion that wearing certain colors or wearing certain stones will balance chakras, because there are two oxymorons here. One is we don't need to work on chakras, we just need to connect to them. And two is, even though it may not be classically an oxymoron, but we have to have context along with content. The content or concept of chakras comes from yogic and tantric texts. So if we want to understand how to approach them, we must study them. We must have the curiosity, enthusiasm, and the will to go through that dense period of confusion while studying a text, to go through that internal sweating, which is called tapasya, while reading a text. Go through that. Why? There should not be, nothing is easy, especially in yoga. If our goal is of that pristine quality that is our self with the capital, it's not easy. You have to go through challenges. So welcome those challenges, maintain the curiosity, and read the text. You don't have to read all. At least one. And most common one is the Yoga Sutras. At least find out which sutras about chakras. Maybe that is the homework of this podcast. Find out which sutras talk about chakras and in what context. So bring context in your content and keep learning. Even overwhelm, even confusion is the pathway to clarity. Even overwhelm is the pathway to stillness. Welcome it.
Thank you, Indu. As always, you give us so much here to reflect on, so much to learn from. Every time you speak in the background, I'm wondering, how does she remember all of this? Because I was thinking you're like a yoga encyclopedia. Things just flow out of you so effortlessly. The next time you are on the podcast, I think I will just quiz you on how you keep all of this in you. But I guess it's years of sadhana and living it and like chewing on it, like you said. Thank you so much. I know you will be back again and again for more, or so I assume. This is, as always, extremely valuable. Thank you for being so generous with all that you do in this little yoga world.
Thank you so much, Arundhati, for having me, and so appreciate the listeners who are keen on listening and keen on following too.
I'm very, usually don't say this, but I'm very proud of this community that comes back, learns, reflects, and listens to it again, reflects some more, and not just reflect. A lot of them actually go and put some of these things into action. Over the past couple of years, I've been noticing small changes, but their yoga is becoming more fulfilling for them. Their teaching is becoming more fulfilling. And that with that, I just feel the podcast that way has become a vehicle of that. And a support system for that. So, and it's only because of guests like you. Me on my own, this would be done in 10 episodes. So thank you.
Now, I would add this. I know this is the ending and we are prolonging the ending, but this is important. It is a big shout out to Let's Talk Yoga's host, Arundhati, because it is your support, the Arundhati, the support. Remember, the Arundhati is Kundalini, the supporter. Without that, no chakras move. So you are the one who are propelling by those questions that you ask. And I have heard so many good things about your podcast through so many participants who come to my training, and I refer to your podcast so many times. So keep doing the good work and keep supporting these tiny chakras.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Indu. Once again, thank you for listening. The sign up link to the new Bite Size newsletter is available in the podcast description. You can find Indu Arora's website, social media, her new course, and more at letstalk.yoga/listen. As always, I appreciate you being here till the very end. I hope this helps. I'll see you next week with another conversation and another guest. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.